I'll ring the bell too, so that it can symbolize the beginning of our practice. And let's identify this as a segment, a 1 hour segment that we have together, which means we step outside of everything that happened this morning. We even step outside of the lovely conversations that we've been having a few moments ago. Whether or not you slept well last night becomes irrelevant. It fades into the background. Last night, yesterday, days before. In fact, every practice we've ever had in the past, let's leave all of those in the segment before this and enter into this practice all as beginners, bringing with us that quality called the beginner's mind. Arriving into this segment. Arriving into your bodies. Your body's arriving on top of the chairs and the cushions and the mats and the mattresses that you find underneath you. Acknowledging, maybe even by taking a peek with your eyes, just noticing where you are in your room, in this space. And simplifying the whole practice. That pretty much sums up the whole practice, arriving. Constantly arriving into the only moment that ever exists, this present moment. And we won't try to understand what the present moment is, just because it's, some teachers call it awareness, some teachers call it a state of presence, many different labels describing, and every single one of those labels correct and accurate, because it's it's that and so much more. A moment 5 million years ago, a moment 5 years ago, a moment 5 minutes ago. Had all passed through that dot called the present moment, that line, that vertical line called the present moment. Time, if you can imagine it to be a horizontal line, and the present moment, awareness, being a vertical line with no ceiling and no point at which it ends, top or bottom. A continuous line. But it seems to meet. There seems to be a point, a single point where this present moment meets that horizontal line called time, and that's where we are right now. This is where we are. We are here, now, every experience from our past, every single experience that we have had, every smile, every laugh, every tear, every sigh of relief and frustration, all leading up to this moment, and it has arrived. So let us release an intention that in this segment that we have set aside for ourselves, our self, let us set about an intention as to not what we would like to do, not what we would like to accomplish, not for a result, but simply what we would like to experience. And let's make it, we all like relief, we like ease, we like comfort. And you have many other words describing emotions that feel good. Release some of those intentions for this segment. And so we begin simply by identifying how we would like to feel. And then notice how the practice has already started. As we tune into this moment through our senses, the sense of sight, letting that fade into the background since the eyes are closed. The sense of hearing, which is one of our most profound doorways into the present moment. And therefore activating your sense of hearing so that you can hear not only the sounds that are emanating from your own body, the sound of your breathing, maybe the sound of your digestive system, subtle sounds of pulses, and then there are the sounds coming from within the space that you're in, the room. And then there are sounds that are coming from further away. Noticing whether any of these sounds are distracting or disturbing our practice. And if there are, simply appreciating them even more, simply because they become our most valuable tools in this practice. Only because when you find a particular sound distracting or disturbing, it's usually an indication that we are resisting and pushing against it, which is another way of saying that we are pushing against the present moment. An integral part of this present moment. It sounds a little bit like the mind telling the sound to go away because I'm supposed to be experiencing silence. I'm supposed to be practicing meditation or mindfulness. And because of everything we've read, because of some of the other teachers and facilitators we've been with, sometimes we come to expect absolute silence when we enter into a practice like this. Not only silence in sound, but silence within the mind, because we've seen statues of the Buddha, we've read about experiences of others who have described stillness and peace. And so when we experience anything other than what we believe we should be experiencing, we believe that we are failing in the practice. If there are sounds around us that are disturbing us, again, we feel that this is not the perfect environment for the practice. And the chatter within the mind begins. But today we let go of words such as meditation and mindfulness and simply call this practice the art of allowing. And so we allow all of the sounds around us to be exactly as they are. Maybe even calling it a symphony, calling what surrounds you at this moment a symphony. And if you can't hear anything, notice that you still can. There might be, unless we live in a vacuum, there are sounds around us. And calling these sounds the way in which they present themselves to us a symphony, which means every sound has a place in the symphony. And we've all been to some of those jazz, we've listened to those jazz pieces or more contemporary classical pieces of music where it takes a little bit more time to understand the music, the place of every instrument, to understand the mind of the composer, knowing full well that within the mind of the composer, every instrument had its place in this piece of music that was composed. And so in the same way, we allow, and sometimes just using words such as a symphony brings us into a better state of allowing as we turn it into a game of sorts, releasing the seriousness that comes with labels such as meditation, being playful, turning it into an art, dancing with the sounds, the same way a surfer surfs over the waves, sound waves. And we surfing over these waves, sometimes quite exhilarating. But these are not the only waves that we're experiencing right now. Not only the sound waves, but the thought waves. And you notice I'm calling them thought waves. And if you've ever seen scientists measure brain waves and thoughts when they put those little things over the scalp, they look like little waves. Thoughts, they're just like movements on some sort of a scale. And so what's happening with the thoughts right now? Can you notice where your thoughts are? And can you allow your thoughts in the same way you have been learning and practicing how to allow the sounds? Because it's the same principle. And the same way we see the sounds as emanating and originating from a source outside of us, can we also see our thoughts as separate? Because that forms the foundation of this practice. Witnessing thoughts. And the use of words such as witness implies that the observer is separate from the thought. And if you were to observe your thoughts, for some of us we might actually find ourselves being carried by the thoughts. Literally being carried by them. And that's not a bad thing. If you are being carried by your thoughts, notice where the thought has taken you. One thing you'll always notice is that the thought has either taken you into the past or carried you somewhere into the future. Because the mind is that horizontal line, existing in the past, existing in the future, and sometimes jumping from one to the other. And this practice is about simply the first stage, recognizing that this is happening. Recognizing that this is the nature of the mind. That it has a momentum. And whatever direction your mind is taking you towards right now, whether the past or the future, it's easy. It feels easy, doesn't it? It feels easy to think about what you're thinking right now. And the reason for that is because we've practiced those thoughts. We've practiced the same way we're sitting here practicing how to observe the mind and the thoughts. Up until now, we've practiced certain thoughts. And because we've practiced them, they're easy to think. And so they keep appearing over and over again. Only because we've practiced them for a very long time. And the longer we've practiced particular thoughts, the stronger the momentum of that particular thought. And so you'll find yourself during this practice, you'll get a glimpse of that point, that crisscross point, where the vertical line meets the horizontal line, and that point, it feels very still. There is alignment. There is allowing. There is making peace with the present moment. And then that thought that you have been practicing, it carries you either into the past or into the future. And that's why it's just an example, but if you've disliked someone in your life, if you've formed feelings of dislike or even hatred against them, it's easy to feel that way because it's what we've practiced. But we've taken the first step today that will enable us to give ourselves a break from these practiced thoughts. Yes, we figured out that it doesn't feel that good. the hatred, the anger. It feels very familiar, but we also know that it does not feel good. It doesn't feel good. It feels familiar. We recognize it, but it doesn't feel very good. In fact, it feels quite bad. Why could this be? Could it be because the mind is thinking something that's very different from what the witnessing presence is thinking and feeling? Notice how the anger, the hatred, and all of those emotions are based on memories, expectations, stories. And then bring yourself back to that vertical line which is this moment. Only this moment, where the past dissolves, where the future is completely immaterial, and there's only us sitting here as a group, entering into this present moment together, building a new momentum, a new practice. Shall we call it thought? A new direction, a new momentum. And let's just spend a few moments basking in it. Back to our senses. They will help us to ground ourselves more deeply into this moment. Activate, wake up your skin. Wake up the skin, starting with the tips of your fingers. Because many of us, we associate our sense of touch with the tips of the fingers, where we feel for something that's sharp or hot or cold, we use our fingers. And so where are your fingers right now? Notice the surface upon which your fingers are resting. My fingers are sort of crisscrossed. I've got my palms, my fingers kind of grasping where the fingers are crisscrossed, so I can feel my right finger, the fingers on my right hand crossing through the fingers on the left hand. There's quite a lot of warmth, a little bit of maybe dampness. I can feel the surface of my hands resting on my lap. What about your hands? Where are they? Can you feel the weight of your hands? Can you feel your fingernails? How do you even know that your hands are there? Your eyes are closed. Let's not try to understand this through concepts. Let's not conceptually understand this, but more experientially experience your hands. And this is how you awaken your sense of touch. Your palms, the back of your hand, and now it's spreading up your arms, through the forearms, into the elbows, the upper arm, the bicep muscles, the triceps, the skin resting on top of all of this muscle. And slowly feel your skin, the sensations expanding throughout the remaining parts of your body. Shoulders, chest, upper back, lower back, around the stomach, legs. Slowly, inch by inch, you're beginning to establish your posture. Establish what posture that your body has adopted at this moment. For some of us, it's a seated posture. For some of us, it's the lying down posture. For some of us, it's on a chair. Some of us, it's on the flooring or cushions. And so it's very unique, very different, very specific. And let us experience. Again, invoking the beginner's mind. So you experience for the first time. Because this is, you've probably realized this is not a practice. It's not like the degrees that we've accumulated or the school assignments that we once did, where we retained memories we attempted to reproduce. This is totally different. This is totally different. Because every one of those, everything we've ever learned in school, everything we've memorized can now be done by computers. We are after the experience of being here in this moment. And so the beginner's mind is where we begin this experience for the first time. And I don't mean this full, not even the full 5 minutes, just this moment, the moment that just passed. But now it's here again and again and again. This present moment. Your clothing. And the skin around your stomach. The way your stomach interacts with your clothing. And notice this because feel your breath. Feel your breath through your stomach. Notice how when you breathe in, notice what happens to your stomach wall. And so you're very gently releasing your awareness of the other parts of the body, and you're beginning to focus only on the stomach. And noticing what happens when you breathe in and then out. And then noticing the relationship between the skin and your stomach and the clothing that's covering your stomach. The sensation. Noticing how the stomach wall rises. How it falls as we exhale and as we breathe out. And how the fabric is affected by these movements. How the thin layer of warm air underneath the fabric cushions your skin. Your ability to even detect possible folds, or if it's a stretchy material, the way it sits quite snugly on your skin. And then letting go of all of those, you're going to see many different meanings arising. Like, you're feeling the texture of the fabric. You might be feeling warmth or coolness, and all of these are meanings. Where are these meanings coming from? They're coming from the mind. Because the mind is beginning to become something that's here to help us decipher these sensations. Because in this present moment, all your body can experience are sensations. That's all your body can experience. Your body, in this present moment, if you release everything you've ever learned in the past, that means you have nothing to compare this moment to. You wouldn't know what warmth is. You wouldn't know what the rising of the stomach wall is, the falling of the stomach wall. All of these meanings arise because the mind, it leaves its stories behind, and it begins to align itself into the present moment. It reaches this dot where the vertical line meets the horizontal line. It reaches the skin, and it helps. It's teaching us, this sensation you're experiencing, this is called the rising of the stomach wall. And this one's called the falling of the stomach wall. And the fabric you feel, that's comfort. That's discomfort. That's a soft fabric. That's a light fabric. So many labels, and the conversation, it goes on and on and on sometimes. And we just notice these meanings. And instead of joining in the chatter, in the conversation, because the mind likes these stories, we just stick little post-it notes labeling, this sensation is warmth. This sensation is called rising. This sensation is called falling. And if you like, you can simplify it by simply focusing on the rising and the falling of the stomach wall. Each rising, the only rising, the first time the stomach wall is rising. And every time the stomach wall falls, it becomes the only time that it falls. And you observe your breathing process through your stomach. Moving your experience inward through the skin and into the inner parts of your stomach, the muscle and the lining around your stomach, and feeling how from within how it balloons, and how the muscles and the lining contracts as you exhale and as you breathe out. And if you like, as you breathe out, following your breath as it moves up your chest, through your windpipe, into the nasal region, experiencing as it flows down the nose and out through the nostrils, tracking the temperature, anything that gives you sensations of direction, sensations of temperature, of humidity levels. Some of these sensations are outside of the body, around the upper lip. Most of them are within the body. Notice how your sense of touch not only applies to the surfaces outside of your body, but also within this region in particular. Even noticing how no effort is required. All you need to do is observe. And even that, you don't have to. There are no have-tos. You just observe. Constantly bringing yourself back to the breath every time the mind, through some of its habitual thinking, takes you away. Understanding maybe for the first time that it drifts away only because of the practice. Because we've practiced thinking those thoughts. But today we find ourselves supported. We find ourselves within a group. We find ourselves discovering a new momentum to the mind. One where it is being guided into this stillness and the silence of this moment. If you like, I will ring the bell now. And this is, but if you would like to bring some continuity to your practice, then even though I've said these words, don't let the segment end. Just simply allow it to continue. Noticing the effect of my words on your mind. What came across your mind when you heard these words? That I'm going to ring the bell and we can take a break. What came through your mind? And then you're observing. If you've been quite uncomfortable, then there will be the anticipation, when is the bell going to ring? And if you're thirsty, there's going to be that impatience as well. I'd love to pick up that glass in front of me and have a sip of water, or if maybe it's finding a new posture. But just notice the effect of words on the mind. And then we begin to realize how every experience around us affects our thoughts. If words as simple as this can create ripples in the mind, our lives are full of different experiences, people, places, events, stories. But this is where we learn how to bring continuity to it, to this practice. So even when you leave the practice, later on, after the final bell, the practice simply continues. For as long as you can sustain it, it might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it might be an hour, 2 hours, but just notice, observe, experience, watch yourself sustaining it, and once you've lost it, that's fine. Don't be too hard on yourself. Know that every morning you get a new opportunity to return back to the reset button. And so when you hear the bell, notice how movement unfolds within your body. If that's something that's going to happen, if that's something you would like to happen, if you'd like to pick up a glass, if you'd like to stretch, Notice how easy it is to feel good. Just do something that feels good. And really tune into it. Could be a soft massage, it could be a stretch of a particular part of the body. So the practice continues. Almost as though you were standing outside of your body, observing someone else moving or sipping water. And now with this bell, settle, try to find a posture that you're comfortable in. Some of you might not even have moved because you're so comfortable. And that's absolutely fine. But notice what it feels like. Notice what you're feeling, and notice everything that you're experiencing right now. The momentum of the mind, the sensations around your body, how you're feeling, emotions that may have arisen or may be arising. And then, do you remember the hourglass meditation? Some of you might have been around, but if you can visualize an hourglass, it's one of those old timekeeping pieces where it's wide on the top, narrow in the middle, only allowing 1 or 2 grains to pass through, and then it's wider at the bottom end. So a moment ago, you experienced all that you're experiencing: emotions, thoughts, body sensations. Now, bring yourself to that narrow bit in the hourglass, and that narrow bit is your breath. The passage of air moving in and out through your nostrils, and just feel the sensations of your breath. And to allow you to experience it more vividly, just breathe in as deeply as you can. And breathe out as slowly as you can, magnifying the sensations. Breathing in and out, and then moving to the lower part of the hourglass, where you once again experience everything that's coming in through your senses: sound, sight if your eyes are open, physical sensations, smell, taste, noticing everything, your thoughts, noticing what you're feeling. And normally when you use this practice, you'll notice that the lower part of the hourglass feels a little bit more quieter, a bit more silent, a bit more still. And that's called the 3-minute meditation. Something that we can carry with us in our pockets throughout our day. A virtual hourglass, a tiny little piece that we could slip into one of our pockets. Through our mind's eye, of course, where we bring ourselves back to our breath. And so it doesn't matter what you're experiencing: turbulence, anxiety, happiness, joy, excitement, enthusiasm. You take stock, you feel everything you're feeling. You come back to your breath, that narrow passage where only a grain of sand passes through. Spend as long as you like here, and then you return back to everything that you're experiencing. And you bring a drop of awareness with you, a drop of stillness. We've spoken so much about our relationship with our mind. And that's what this practice is about. It's about developing this new relationship with our mind. Not wrestling with the mind. Not attempting to tame it with a whip. Not attempting to wrestle and force it to stop moving. But instead simply stepping outside of it. And noticing how there is silence and stillness all around the thought. And then practicing ourselves into this new relationship where we observe and experience it from outside. And that can be quite abstract. So those of you who practice with me, we sometimes use visualizations to help us understand this relationship. And so let's bring into our mind's eye the vision of a mountain, an image of a mountain. It can be a new mountain if you like. Many of you have done this practice many times, but like I said, this is not an academic exercise, and so the mind and its memories can simply fade into the background. And this becomes a new practice. Because your experiences today will be very unique and very specific and very different because you have changed. Not only have you changed since a month ago or a week ago, you've changed even since this morning. New learnings, new observations, new understandings. And so imagine this mountain, and it's got valleys, and it's huge, it's massive. Its peak, it reaches high up into the sky. There might be snow, and it might be a snow-capped mountain, or it might be covered in greenery, or it might even be a volcanic mountain covered in dark ash. But we simply recognize, as far as structures on this planet go, they're older than any of the man-made structures. They've been here for a very long time, millions, possibly billions of years. Very unique. No mountain is a duplicate of another. Stability, and even amongst mountains, if yours is a volcanic mountain, you know that there are tremors, and we've all experienced them in our lives. Every single one of us, we've experienced challenges, tremors, but it still stands here. It still stands just as we do, or rather sit. And so we sit, we breathe, and we feel this image merging into our bodies merging into this image. Your head becoming the peak of this great mountain, your shoulders, your chest, your back becoming the sides of this great and vast mountain. And as you move back, you notice how stable it appears. And it is, because it's been here for a very long time, and you feel the points of contact underneath your body. The way your body interacts with the chairs and the cushions, the surfaces underneath you. And then we allow our bodies to merge into these surfaces. The way in which those surfaces mold to our bodies, the way our bodies mold to these surfaces, we feel our body's center of gravity lowering, entering into the flooring, entering under the flooring, into the earth, traveling miles and miles into the earth, feeling the stability, just this, in the same way the mountain merges into the crust of the earth. We feel the stability that comes with this. We acknowledge our right to be here, to inhabit this space that we inhabit. And of course, I don't only mean this space that you're sitting on. The space that you have occupied on this planet. Everything you are, your likes, your dislikes, who you believe you are, who you know you are. It's a knowing. Ground yourself. Breathe. Feel your breath entering into your body, and not only does it enter into the upper parts of your body, but it enters into the crust of the earth, which has become a part of us. Feel the stability, and then notice that entity that is separate from us, called the mind. That mind represented by the clouds that seem to pass this mountain. Clouds of all shapes, of all sizes, of all colors. Some of them dark and stormy, some of them white and fluffy, and sometimes just light mist. And if you've ever felt sad or angry or frustrated, or one of those emotions that feel less than pleasant, it often simply means that we believe we are the clouds. We've forgotten that we are this mountain, and we let the clouds carry us. But that's not possible, is it? It's simply not possible. It's just not possible for the clouds to move this mountain. And that's why this practice is simply it's like a reminder. It's like an awakening from a dream, where you discover you're not the cloud, but you are this mountain. And feel what it's like to feel. Feel yourself. Remind yourself what it feels like to be this mountain. Wriggle your fingers, wriggle your toes. And then observe the clouds moving. And there is joy in just noticing the clouds moving, because you know that they are going to pass. You know that they will pass. And then the gaps appear. And not only do the gaps appear, but the daylight turns into night, and the night into day, and the cycle continues into seasons. And then you begin to recognize the whole ecosystem that is your body, the life that your body sustains, the trillions of cells within your body, the same way the mountain has trillions of blades of grass and trees and leaves. And the leaves, they fall off in certain seasons and they grow back in spring, and it's natural. The spring flowers emerging, and the autumn leaves falling, and the clouds moving, and us, the mountain, allowing. Notice how when we imagine ourselves to be the clouds, we want to hold on to the leaves. Sometimes we don't. The leaves have to fall off in order for the flowers to emerge. And now we have that wisdom. And we sit, we breathe, we observe, and most importantly, we experience. Ourselves sitting here, breathing just as we had when we had started this practice. No televisions, no radios, no books, no stories. Just a recognition of our ability to hopefully maybe not feel good, but just feel a little bit better than we did before the practice started. Nothing's changed. Just sitting here, eyes closed, breathing. Perhaps a glimpse into the control that we have over the way we feel. Whether we're in a palace or a jail cell becomes immaterial. Just sitting and breathing. The bell symbolizing the beginning of a new segment. And the same way in which we started this segment, this practice segment, whatever your next segment is, lay out an intention of what you would like to feel. And see what unfolds.